I trust that you all now have a packet, one per family. If you don't, there's still some packets over there on the table back there. But I'm glad you're here tonight. I trust that you'll learn a lot. Sometimes, I did a seminar last night over at St. Pete, and I told the people there, I said, when we get started, put one finger in one ear and just keep it there so that it doesn't come in this ear and go out that ear. You're able to retain it. So hopefully that will help. A little bit about my background is my degrees are in accounting and business administration. I was most recently the president at Florida Christian College when we merged with Johnson University. And when I was president of the school, I used to teach these seminars, although not a lot, because when you're dealing with students and faculty and accreditation and all these other issues, you don't have time just to teach state seminars. But since the merge, I've joined Christian Financial Resources, and Darren Key has asked me to come on board and do this full-time for CFR. So it gives me the opportunity to bless our churches and continue to work with our churches and offer this as a ministry to you to help you all get these documents figured out, straightened out, and worked out. It's my passion. You'll be able to tell that by the time I finish tonight that I'm a pretty passionate guy, and that's just the way I am. This is something that I firmly believe in, something I'm excited about. I love to teach, and therefore I am not a salesman. I'm not here to sell you anything tonight. I'm here to teach you, and that's what I'm about. I'm here to teach you, to help you understand some concepts that maybe have been made a little more complicated than what they need to be for you. And so I want to try to make this as simple as possible for you, make some recommendations to you. I want to be able to show you how through probate savings and by us preparing your documents for you, how we're able to divert money that would normally have gone to attorneys and to the court system and be able to channel that towards God and to bless God's kingdom. And so that's where we're going to ultimately end up, is doing that. I've given you a lot of information. You'll notice on the packet that I gave you, the very top sheet is a questions to ponder sheet. That's just questions to help you get started thinking about estate planning and the decisions that you're going to need to make. Now, some of those decisions will apply to you, some won't. But they're there for your benefit to help you at least get started thinking about some of the decisions that you're going to need to make. The second sheet is a words of wisdom. There's a few things I've learned in my 63 years that I wanted to share with you all, and most of that's designed to go to our younger families, our young couples that have minor children at home. Those of you that are over 63, you could probably teach me a lot of things. But anyway, those are some thoughts that I wanted to share with you in terms of making sure you have an emergency savings fund, adequate term life insurance, learning to live by the 80-10-10 rule, and just being nice. You know, we're Christians, right? And we're called to be nice. And that's the one thing that I emphasize at the end there, is just be generous and be nice to others. And then I have a planning guide there, and we'll work through that later. And I'll have you actually complete that planning guide. That's the orange and black and beige booklet that's there. And that'll be containing your information. And then I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks and sit down in individual appointments with you. I'll give you the opportunity to schedule a 45-minute appointment with me. And I'll come back on Wednesday, March 21st and Thursday, March 22nd. And I'll set up here in the church, probably in this room, and I'll meet with you one-on-one, and we'll go through your planning guide, or if you just have questions, you can come in and ask me, but I'll show you how you schedule an appointment later on. And then there's the blue packet there. That's the Christian Financial Resources Annual Report. Now, you've had our Chief Executive Officer, Darren Key, come over here for years and present to you CFR. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on talking about Christian Financial Resources, but I do want to fill you in a little bit about what it is that we do, and basically how we operate is folks in our churches will place money on deposit with us, And then we in turn take that money and loan it out to Christian churches all across the eastern part of the United States. So it's Christians helping Christians. Biblical, right? It's Christians helping Christians by pooling our resources together and helping other churches buy land, build buildings, to renovate, to do different things, projects that they need to do. But in addition to investments and also loans, we also do consulting work. And our consulting has a couple of different phases. One is in construction management, where we have a gentleman on staff now, Jesse Cam, who actually has his PhD in construction management, and he serves as a resource to you, the local church, and can be the go-between between the church and the building contractor. And he knows their language, he knows what he's doing, and he can guide the church through a building project that maybe they might struggle with otherwise. And so Jesse serves as a consultant for that. And then what I do is I come in and I teach these will and trust seminars to help our church families get their estate plans done. And so that's what I do. And so you can see Christian Financial Resources is a resource to you, the local church, by providing you some expertise in getting some things done. Thing I find in my seminars, the people that come to my seminars are the type of people that number one, they may have documents that are maybe 20 or 30 years old, or they don't have any documents at all, and they're wanting to get started, but they don't know how or where to start, and they don't trust an attorney to guide them through it. So they come to these seminars, and hopefully you trust me. You know, I'm a pretty nice guy. You'll find that out by the time it's over. You know, and I also appreciate you, because last year you sat up here, didn't you? And I picked on you through that whole seminar, didn't you? You learned your lesson, didn't you? You moved back here.
Great.
You know, you gotta have a little fun with this stuff, because otherwise it'd be boring. But anyway, that's what we do. And so I'm going to encourage folks to read that material and take it to heart. And if you're interested in investing, you can fill out the application. One good thing is right now, just on our regular savings account, our ready cash account, we're paying 2% interest on that. You're not going to find that in a bank or in a money market fund anywhere with that kind of return. The nice thing about it is when you place money on deposit with us, you know where your money's going and who it's helping. It's helping other Christian churches across the country to build and do what they need to do. And many of you are investors here, and I certainly appreciate those of you that are investors with us. I'm preaching to the choir. Again, Merritt Island's been a strong supporter of Christian Financial Resources, thanks to Mark and his leadership and things, and I just hope that that'll always continue. And this is our way of paying back to you, the church here at Merritt Island, by offering you these seminars and doing these documents for you at no cost to you. So that's why we think this is very beneficial, and you'll get a lot out of things as well. So without going into any much more detail, we'll just get started here. Again, I want to encourage everyone to have a 3 to 6 month emergency savings fund. You need that money set aside in reserve in case that 3-ton AC system goes out, or the roof leaks, or heaven's sakes we have another hurricane and you got a deductible. All this kinds of stuff, you need an emergency fund. Secondly, I encourage you to have it with Christian Financial Resources. And then you can link your savings account at CFR with your bank checking account. And then anytime you need to move money, you just either call us or you go online and you move it, and it's in your account the next day or the day after. And you can transfer money back and forth. We don't charge you fees. We don't charge you limit to the number of transactions or anything like that. You're free to move as much or as little as you want back and forth. Everyone needs to have a plan to fund retirement. That's important as well. Everyone needs to, especially our young families, and I'll talk about that later, you need to have adequate term life insurance. If something happens to you, is the money there, are the resources there to be able to provide for your family in case something happens? And then, of course, everyone needs estate documents. And you say, well, Bill, I don't have a lot of money, so I really don't have an estate. Well, I like to tell folks, look, if you've got $5, you've got an estate. And if you have $5, God's entrusted you with that $5, and He wants you to use it for His honor and His glory. So everyone needs to have an estate plan. And so that gets us into this question, well, what is estate planning? Well, it's a twofold process. One is it's the transfer of things that you have to the people and ministries that you love. It's transferring your stuff. Everybody's got stuff. And it's how to get it over to the next generation. And then secondly, it's there so that others are able to make decisions on your behalf when you can't do so for yourself. If you're in an auto accident or something happens, you're unable to make decisions for yourself. Somebody else can step in and make those decisions for you until you get better. So that's the twofold process of estate planning. So if you own something of value, you've got an estate. And estate planning really is a stewardship issue. It's a stewardship issue. So our purpose tonight is to educate our church members in the importance of having an estate plan. You're going to have several options to consider tonight. One is you can go online and do this. You can go to LegalZoom or Total Legal or US Legal Forms or nolo.com. There's a plethora of websites that you can go to and complete these documents online if you want. Also, if you're interested in finding a local estate planning attorney, I can help you do that too. If you want to work through us, we use a service called Financial Planning Ministry, and what they do is they prepare the documents for you. And so you've got some options, but you notice one option that's not up there, and that's do nothing. Because you don't have that excuse anymore now. You're in my seminar tonight, so nobody has the excuse to do nothing. And some people we have here a second time again because they were just so thrilled with the first year seminar, they just had to come back and hear me again. But I'm going to help you, and we're going to get this done, aren't we? We're going to get this done this time, right? We're going to be fine. So that's the program's purpose. But our goal isn't necessarily to write documents. Our goal is to guide our church members to prayerfully consider their full stewardship potential by supporting ministry through probate savings, no matter who drafts the documents. Whether we do it for you, or you take it to an attorney, or you do it online, just remember God in your estate. We give God 10% of our income. We just tend to forget God in our estate, with our stuff, with what we own. And I'm here to gently, well, more than gently, to remind you of that fact. And I don't have any problem asking for money for God. You know, that's a privilege to be able to do that. So, we'll get into that a little bit later. But this is your chance to fund ministry and change lives, because the decisions you make today can impact many lives for eternity. So here's things you're going to learn tonight. And again, relax. I'm not going to put any pressure on you to do anything. This is your chance to gain information and understand and learn. But this is what you're going to learn tonight, is the fact that we're stewards, we're managers of what we have. We're going to learn some legacy decisions that we need to make. What's the documents that I'm going to need for estate planning? And what's the options? What's the difference between a will and a trust? And what is probate? And is that something that I should embrace, or do I want to avoid it at all possible? And how can I convert probate dollars into kingdom investments to change lives for eternity? What if I own property in 2 or more states? What's that do to me? Will that send me in probate in each one of those states? Yes, it will. And then finally, the document validity in a new state. If there's someone here that is a snowbird that lives in Pennsylvania or some other state, we can prepare your documents for your state as well. So it's not, even though I'm going to be talking about Florida stuff tonight, if you're from out of state, we can help you and prepare your documents for your home state. But maybe you just recently moved to Florida from another state, and you have documents that were written in Ohio or Kentucky or Indiana. Do you need to have Florida documents? Yes, you should have Florida documents. You need to update to have it, because each state is different with their requirements, and there are state specific. So those are the things you're going to learn tonight. So now, you ready to put your finger in your one ear so you can retain all this? Okay, good. Here we go. God owns it all. If we approach it in our estate from this standpoint, it opens up a whole new door of understanding for us, because we realize that God owns it all. God owns it all, and we're managers of what He's entrusted to us. We're stewards, we're managers. So that means all of our stuff that we have at home, also our kids. All of these have been given to us by God. And He expects us to be good stewards, good managers of what He's entrusted to us. So here's some scriptures. It's not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination, but there's some scriptures. Stewardship means taking special care of whatever God has entrusted to you. This means considering what God has given to you as being from Him and for His use. So what has God entrusted to your care? And how will you honor Him? See, tonight, folks, this isn't just financial stuff, okay? This is spiritual stuff. These are spiritual decisions that you're going to be faced with and you need to make. And it's about being a good steward of what God has entrusted to you. And He expects you to take care of things, not the court system. He wants you to assign who's going to raise your kids if something happens to you. He wants you to decide how you can best honor Him, because the judge isn't going to give any money to kingdom work. So God wants you to be in charge of that and to understand that. So that's why these are spiritual decisions. It's not just financial stuff tonight. Okay? Y'all still awake? Yeah. Good. All right. So, who's going to be my intended beneficiaries? My spouse? My children? Merritt Island Church? Other ministries? Who's going to be my intended beneficiaries? And then when should they receive what I have? While I'm still alive? After I pass? Or a combination? And if I decide to go ahead and do something now, does Uncle Sam get involved in that? Now, what do you think? Of course. Of course, Uncle Sam gets involved. So you have to take that into account, too, from the standpoint of what taxes might be incurred and things by gifting away assets while you're still alive. And we can talk more about that one-on-one. But then, how much should the beneficiaries receive? Should they get it all at once, or should it be kind of dribbled out? Well, here's a good example. Maybe you're a couple that it's taken you all your life to be able to save $50,000 that you've got squirreled away in the bank. But you know, if something happens to the both of you tomorrow, your adult son, in 1 week's time, will take that $50,000 and go down to the Ford dealership and buy a new F-150 with it. And that money will be gone within a week's time. Took you a lifetime to save it. Took him 1 week to get rid of it. So what can you do to protect that son? And we'll talk a little bit about that, of ways that you can protect. And what you would do is set up a special trust that would still give him that $50,000, but maybe you choose to give him 10% a year of that for 10 years, or 20% a year for 5 years, or you figure out the combination that you want to use, but you can decide that and do that. And then what's the personal items that I want to distribute? I've got grandfather's pocket watch. I have mom's china. I have my grandparents' wedding rings. Maybe you have your dad's rocking chair. Whether it's of value or not, it's sentimental to you, and you want to make sure that goes to a specific person, a specific individual. Yes, you can do that by including that in your documents. And I can even help you go ahead and get started on that list. You can start sometime over breakfast and just start sitting down and jotting down those things that you might have that you want to see go to a specific child or grandchild or friend or other family member. It's just a matter of making a list of things, and then when you do complete your documents, you make sure you sign this and you attach it with your other documents. And that's how you can make sure that your personal items get passed on to the person that you want to receive that. Now, you could be like what my mom did when they went into assisted living back in 2003. Mom went around the house with yellow Post-it notes. And she put Post-it notes on everything that she wanted to go to such and such a child. And there's 3 of us, have 2 older sisters, and the things that she couldn't decide, what she did was, she had us all come over one day, and she gave us each a shiny new quarter, and made us get out on the floor, 50 and 60-year-old people down on the floor, and we're flipping quarters, and the odd person got whatever it was that she brought out. And we had a ball doing that. And there was never that first argument over who was getting what. And that made a big difference. Now, whether you do that kind of thing or not, but that's just a way that you can distribute personal items if you need to. All right? So there's 3 basic options as you start thinking about estate planning. The first option is called intestate succession. That almost sounds like a disease. Intestate succession. That means a person dies without a will. And we've known people that have been in that situation and they've left their family a mess because they weren't organized, they weren't good stewards of what God entrusted to them, and as a result, they acquiesced the decision and postponed it and gave it over to the judge to decide. Because guess who's got a will for you if you don't have one? The state of Florida's got one for you. And you may not like how it divides things up, but the state of Florida's got one, and they're just itching to be able to apply it. A year and a half ago, we had a hip-hop singer pass away that was 57 years old. Begins in a P, ends in an E. Who is it? Prince. Prince died, had a $300 million estate, had 1 sister and 5 half brothers and sisters, and now all of a sudden he has about 200 kids that have all stepped up and called him dad. So now, who's going to end up getting the bulk of that $300 million estate?
Which state's he from?
Attorneys, court system, government, and as a result, it's not going to go to where Prince would have, if you would have asked him where he would have wanted it to go, he would have told you. But he didn't realize that the day that he got up was going to be the shortest day of his life. None of us know when our shortest day of our life is going to be. So therefore, God expects us to be good stewards, good managers of the children He's given us and the things that we have. So it's absolutely essential that we get this done. Now, have I stepped on your toes enough yet? Not yet? Not enough yet? Okay, I'm not done yet, so I've still got a lot of time yet. But 70% of us in the church do not have a valid estate plan. And so that's what I'm out to correct. And I've been able to help thousands of families over the past 16 years get these documents done. And there's a great joy in being able to do that. Now, secondly, this is a term a lot of us are familiar with, the last will and testament. And so some of you may have this. In a last will and testament, a comment about that is, one is a holographic will. A holographic will is a handwritten will. The holographic will, and also taking your iPhone and sitting there and recording yourself in distributing your stuff, guess what? Those aren't valid in the state of Florida. So you can't use a handwritten will. As of 2011, those are no longer accepted in the state of Florida. So that's not going to do you any good. Witnessed will. In the state of Florida, it's required to have 2 witnesses and a notary. And the purpose of that is those witnesses have to be independent people. They can't be anyone that's listed in your documents. They have to be independent people. And then also you have the notary the same way, an independent person. And all 3 come in and notarize and sign off as witnesses saying that you are who you claim to be. Either you are personally known or you've produced a photo ID, And also, in addition to that, you are of sound mind. You're capable of knowing what you're doing. So the witnesses give witness to that, and then the notary comes in and says, well, all three of them know who they are, and they all know what they're doing. I'm a notary in the state of Florida. And so when I do that, I have to make sure that when I notarize documents, that they've proven who they are, and they are capable of making a decision. Outdated will. I always tell folks, look, you'll find that every 3 to 5 years, on average, you'll need to update your documents. For whatever reason, every 3 to 5 years, something changes in your family. Life doesn't go in a straight line, does it? It's got its peaks and its valleys and its twists and its turns. Life doesn't go in a straight line. So as a result of that, we need to be able to change and update our documents. I had a gentleman about 10 years ago in the Villages at Tavares at Mid-Lakes Christian Church that came up to me afterwards, and he was an elderly man, about 90 years old, and he said, well, Bill, I have a will, but it was a will that I had to write before I went into the war. And I kind of chuckled to myself, and I said, I'll bet I know which war he's talking about. And it was World War II. And I said, what do you think life's changed for you since then? Well, yeah, I got great-great-grandkids now. So I was able to help him get his documents updated, and I'm sure he's with the Lord now, but I was able to help him get his documents updated and get that all taken care of. Don't let your documents go that long, because life changes for you, and you need to be able to keep things updated. Then there's also trust. First trust is called an irrevocable trust, and we're not going to talk much about that tonight. An irrevocable trust is a trust that can't be changed. Once you make a decision, you can't change it. And it's already been funded, it's been taken care of, you can't take it back. But what we're going to talk about tonight is a revocable living trust, a trust that can be changed, because you'll find you'll need to update, you'll need to change as life changes. So I tell folks that if there's anyone in your documents, if there's been a birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, or a move, all 5 of those could be reasons to cause you to update your documents. Those all could be reasons. Doesn't mean that you will, but it's a reason for you to at least think about whether or not you need to update your documents, okay? So, which one of those plans would likely be subject to probate? Well, what is probate? Probate administration is the process of paying a deceased person's debts and then transferring assets to his or her beneficiaries. A probate court judge oversees the process. Well, that may sound well, fine, and good. You got a judge involved. He's going to oversee to make sure that what you want done is carried out. Well, maybe that's good. Maybe it's not so good. And we're going to talk about that. But as we think about that, let's go back and let's think. If we die without a will, is that going to go through probate? Certainly it will. If we have a last will and testament, that will go through probate. But if we have a revocable living trust, we'll be able to bypass and avoid probate. When the second of you passes, we already talked about state-specific stuff, and here's another one of these state-specific things. When the second of you passes, how big must your estate be to require probate? In the state of Florida, it's $75,000. So what you own, if it's valued all total over $75,000, you will go through the probate process. If it's under 75, in the state of Florida, we go through what is commonly called a summary probate, and that takes a lot less time to go through. But here's some other states that are listed there, and notice Georgia. You just don't want to even think about living in Georgia, because you're going to go through probate whether you like it or not in Georgia. But anyway, why would we want to avoid probate? Why might we want to avoid it? Well, there's several reasons. The first is because it can be expensive. Probate can be expensive. And it's been in my experience that what I find for most people in situations, on average, 5% of your estate ends up going for probate fees. That's the courts, the attorneys, and others that are involved. On average, around 5%. That could be as low as 1 to 2%. It could be high as over 10%. Now remember, if you own property in more than one state, you effectively double, triple, or quadruple that. And I had a gentleman last summer down in Sebring when I did a seminar for Todd Schwengel down at Sebring Church. He owned property in 4 states. So he was going to be facing probate of about 30% in those states to be able to resolve his property issues. And he was a man of means. But we were able to get his properties placed into a trust and be able to divert that to kingdom dollars. And the church is going to be well blessed instead of some attorneys, because you've got to have an attorney in each one of those states and the court system involved in each one of those states. So as a result, we were able to move that money into God's kingdom and help be able to bypass probate in his behalf. So you can figure out with the percentages. And so the thing I ask is, can you think of other things to do with these funds? Well, yeah. What about kingdom impact? And how can you use that to honor God instead of lining the pocket of an attorney or the court system? Okay, so it's expensive. Secondly, it takes time. Does anyone know a court system that works fast? No. It's something that takes time. But if you lost your parents and you're now the personal representative, you're in charge of settling their estate, and everything has to go through probate because they're deceased, they can't sign their names, so it takes the judge to be able to sign their name. But they still have a mortgage to pay, they still have property tax to pay, they still have homeowners insurance, they still have utilities. Where's that money going to come from to pay those bills? You're either going to have to petition the judge to get access to mom and dad's money, or it's got to come out of your pocket in the meantime until you can get reimbursed. And that's something that takes time. And it can become expensive as well for you. So it's something that takes time. And you have no control over probate because the estate is frozen for that time period. Prince, his situation will probably take 10 to 15 years to get that resolved. And it's such a sad thing because, again, if he had been a good steward of what God gave him with his talents and abilities and the money that he earned, look at the kingdom impact that man could have made. And now it's going to be frittered away as a result. Now, I don't think anybody here has a $300 million estate. If you do, Mark and I will take you to dinner tonight. You know, not very many people have that kind of estate. But the probate process is in control rather than your family. And I want to help you to be in control and your family in control of your estate rather than the probate process. Okay? Here's another big issue is you have no privacy in probate. You have 2 weeks to file a person's will with court after they're deceased. As soon as that gets filed with probate court, that becomes public record. And you may say, well, Bill, what's the big deal about that? Well, here's the big deal about that. Is when that goes on file with the probate court, it becomes public knowledge. Anybody who wants to can go and read that will. Here's what happens. There are unscrupulous people out there that engage others to follow and read the obituaries. And so they read the obituary and they see where a person lived. Maybe they have a big house over here on the beach. And they figure, all right, they've got 2 kids that are here in the Merritt Island area, and chances are they're going to be recipients of that estate. So then they go down to the courthouse and ask to read the will. And so they do find out that the person that passed away had a $2 million estate, and each child is getting $1 million each. So then they contact the child and say, I've got a product just for you. And you can fill in the blank on what that product is. But that kind of nonsense stuff happens every day. And it's happening more and more out there as people get scammed. So that's why, again, it's so important to do this so that you can keep that kind of stuff from happening. And again, remember I said even if you have $5, it's $5 that's been given to you by God, and He wants you to be a good steward of that $5. Okay? Now, what's some advantages of a revocable living trust? As you can see, that's where I'm going with all this. Well, number one, you're able to avoid probate. What happens now when you pass, we'll use your house for an example, what happens now is your successor trustee, the person that's in charge of managing your estate when you're no longer able, can now take a copy of your trust and take the death certificate and go down to the courthouse with their photo ID, and now they become the trustee of your trust, and now they can in turn go out and sell your property, convert things to cash, and be able to distribute, all outside of probate, and it's something that happens much, much quicker. Because now your family's in control of your estate, not the court system. And as a result of that, it's less expensive for heirs. Because that means more money is going to be channeled to the heirs, and it's not going to be tied up in the court system or having to pay attorneys and all of that. You eliminate lengthy delays. A trust you can resolve in a matter of a couple of months instead of years. Because all you do is, once something happens, you take the death certificates, and you as a successor trustee, you start doing your job of converting things to cash, paying final expenses, and then distributing the leftover proceeds to family. You're able to preserve privacy. The only people that know what's in that trust are the beneficiaries. You as a successor trustee are required to give a copy of the trust to each one of the beneficiaries, but that's it. It doesn't go to the court, it doesn't go to anyone else, it just goes to the beneficiaries. And so therefore it fits any size estate. It works well whether it's $5 or it's $5 million. It just helps to be able to do that. It's completely flexible. It can be changed or canceled at any time. Remember I said life changes? So you need to be able to update and change any time. And again, most people, it's a 3 to 5 year situation. Now, the next item here, I'm going to step on some young people's toes. If you have minor children at home, children under the age of 18, listen up. Because this is critical. It's absolutely critical. You want to avoid court-appointed guardianships and trusteeships with minor children. You absolutely have to do that. Here's what happens. If something happens, God forbid, you and your spouse are in an accident, and something happens to you, your family is all going to immediately start fighting over who's best able to raise your kids. And the only person that can decide that is the judge. So all these family members have to appear in front of the judge, and the judge, who doesn't know any of these people, has got to somehow make a determination as to who's the best able to raise the kids. So the judge makes a determination, and most of your family's not going to be happy with the decision. Now, what just happened by doing that? What just happened is you acquiesced because you couldn't make the decision as to who's going to raise your kids because you were too scared to make that decision. So as a result of that, the judge had to. So you took that responsibility and you shirked on that responsibility and you passed it off onto the judge to make that determination. Is that being a good steward? No, it's not. Now, did I make that plain enough? I mean, did I come down on your toes hard enough? I sure hope so, because that is a major, major deal. God has given you the most precious commodity He could give you in your kids. You owe it to your kids and you owe it to God to make that decision, as if something happens to you, and heaven forbid, and hopefully the decision never has to play out. But if it did, it's in place. And you're being a good steward of what God has entrusted to you, namely your kids. So it's essential that you do that. Now, am I stepping on enough toes and doing a good enough job yet? Yeah, okay, good. Now, all right, so now I'm done with the young people. Now I'm going to hit on all of us that are older. So pull your feet in underneath your chairs now. And that's this idea of preventing court control of assets if you become incapacitated. This isn't necessarily just with all of us that are older, but even the young ones as well. Who's going to make those medical decisions for you if something happens to you? Do you want the judge making the decision, or do you want to make that decision and have someone make that in your behalf? So like for me, if something happens to me in an accident, then Cheryl, my wife, makes decisions. If something happens to both myself and Cheryl, then it's our daughter that lives in Gainesville is number one, and if she's not available to make decisions, then it's our son that lives up here in Mims, then he's the one that makes the decision. But we've got that lined up as to who makes the decisions in case something happens to us. Otherwise, it's got to go to the court and the judge has to decide. 2 words will explain that. Terry Shiloh. Terry Shiloh. Y'all remember that? That's the reason why you don't want to put your family through that. Be a good steward and get this all done, okay? So it prevents court control of assets. Anything you can do to keep this out of the court system is to your advantage, and it's the advantage of the people, your family that comes along behind you. Now, here's a thought. Here's a thought for you. And I'm not going to charge you for this because this is free advice here. But you don't want to have happen, you and your spouse pass away and you're in heaven. And you didn't do any documents, you didn't do anything. And then it comes time for your children, they die, and you're there to greet them in heaven. And the first thing out of their mouth, instead of being thrilled to see you, they come to you and say, you left us a mess in an estate. That's not the conversation, the first conversation you want to have when your adult kids join you in heaven, right? Now that's the gospel according to Bill Behrman. That's a paraphrase. I don't know if that book's in the Bible or not, but anyway, that's just something for you to think about. That's not a conversation you want to have, okay? So that's why you need to have this done. All right? Can you see I'm passionate about this stuff? I'm nuts. You know, I'm just crazy about all this. Okay, so you can name who's going to be the conservator, who's going to be the health care provider, who's going to be the health care agent for you, who's going to make the medical decisions for you. That's the advantage of a revocable living trust. And then it's also a quick distribution of assets to the next generation in ministry. Because now all this is going to flow as quickly as the successor trustee can get your death certificates and things can start moving and get things done. You're able to eliminate or reduce federal death tax in larger estates. Now I just put this in here to simply alert you to the fact that right now the exemption is $11.2 million. So if you have an estate that's valued over $11.2 million, anything over that is going to get taxed at 40%. Now, if you've got that situation, again, Mark and I, we're open for dinner tonight, and we'll take you to dinner tonight, and we can help alleviate some of that issue. But I just mentioned that because, again, what Congress gives you, Congress can take away. And that number can change. It's supposed to stay locked in until 2025, but that doesn't mean a thing. That could be dropped back down to 500,000 to $1 million, depends on how greedy Congress might want to get at the time. But that could happen. So anytime you hear on the news where Congress is talking about the federal estate tax or federal death tax, just kind of perk your ear up and listen to see what they're saying. Now, those of us that live in Florida, we live in a great state because we do not have a state estate tax. We do not have a state estate tax, nor do we have a state inheritance tax either. We don't have either one of those. Some states do. They've got both of those, and it can take about 10% of the estate just to state taxes and state inheritance taxes, and sometimes even more than that. You can have that kind of situation that takes place. Yes, ma'am?
If we're living in Florida, but we have kids that live in another state, will they be taxed on our state?
It's because your estate's here in Florida. Yep, your estate's here in Florida. So I just say that just so that you're aware of it. If you hear the state legislature talking about implementing either one of those taxes, that might cause you to do something different in your plan. So it's just something to be aware of, and that's about it. A living trust is difficult to contest. It's tough to contest because of the document prep and everything that's involved in it. It's difficult to contest. Here's how it works. Think of it as a milk bucket. I'm an Indiana farm boy, and I remember milking cows, and all the cats come running when you milk the cow. And do we have any farm kids here that have ever milked a cow? Good. Always have somebody, and it's always good to see that. But think of it as being a trust bucket. And so what you want to do is everything you have, you want to put into the name of the trust and put it in that trust bucket. Then when something happens to you, your successor trustee comes along and turns that bucket upside down and distributes everything that's in it. Okay? So you create the trust. The Behrman Family Living Trust. We name ourselves as trustees, Bill and Cheryl Behrman, as co-trustees. We're still managers of our estate. Nothing's changed except the name of the owner, the name of the manager, Bill and Cheryl Behrman. We're able to name who our successor trustees are going to be and who's going to serve as the healthcare agent if we both become incapacitated. And again, that's our daughter Kelly in Gainesville and our son Creston up in Mims. You can have them serve as co-trustees or individually. I always recommend that you have one person in charge of making decisions. One person at a time. It just seems to flow better. But maybe you want co-trustees. That's fine. You can do that. You also are able to, who's going to serve as the guardian? You want to choose the guardian for your minor children. Who's going to raise them if you're not able to? Who can step in and do that? And so you want to pick one, and you want to have an alternate as a backup too. Plus, you want to choose who's going to be the trustee to manage the children's funds. Here's what happens many times with term life insurance. We'll go out as young parents because we don't have a lot of money, so we go out and we'll buy term life insurance because it's a generally cheap form of insurance, and we'll go out and we'll get maybe $500,000 of term life insurance for $30, $40 a month. We name our spouse as the primary beneficiary, and then we name our minor children as contingent beneficiaries. Well, here's what's going to happen if something happens to you and your spouse. Because as contingent beneficiaries, your children, because they're under the age of 18, cannot inherit property in the state of Florida. So therefore, what's going to happen is the insurance company, instead of writing a check to little Johnny or little Susie, is going to write a check to the court of your county. And then that's going to be under the control of the judge. So now, even though you named a guardian, anytime your guardian needs money, the guardian's got to go in front of a judge to get access to funds. And the judge has to approve the release. And again, that's something that takes time. So instead of naming minor children as beneficiaries, you name the trust as the beneficiary. Then that gets that money into the trust, and it's under the control of your successor trustee to work with your guardian in the raising of your kids. Now, that could be the same person. People will choose the successor trustee as the same person as the guardian, and that's fine. You can do that. Depends on what works best in your situation. So you can choose, but again, you need to choose who's going to be the trustee of the funds in addition to who's going to raise the kids, okay? So you retitle assets into the name of the trust. So on your house, everybody that has a block house, we all have what is called either a general warranty deed or a warranty deed or a quitclaim deed that shows that we own the house. Now, we may have a mortgage on the house, and that's fine, but we own the house. And it's a 2-page document that says that we're owners of the house. It's generally buried in that stack of papers that you get from the title agency, and it's in the middle of that, and you have to dig for it and hunt for it. And some title agencies don't even give it to you. It's beyond me why they don't, because it shows that you own the house. But because it's a public document, you can go online to the county website and download it yourself and print it off. But what you'll do is, if you work through us, you'll make a copy of your warranty deed, and bring that along with your most recent property tax statement, and then we'll prepare a quitclaim deed, moving it from Bill and Cheryl Behrman into the Behrman Family Living Trust, Bill and Cheryl Behrman co-trustees. Then we provide you that 2-page document with instructions to send it to the county courthouse with a check for $19.50 or whatever the recording fee is in this county, to have it officially become part of the record. And that places it into the trust. We also provide you a second document that you will send to the tax assessor that will move your homestead exemption from Bill and Cheryl Behrman to the Behrman Family Living Trust. That's a single page that you'll send to the tax assessor. So that's how you do that. Investments and bank accounts. You'll want to, once you get your documents done, you'll want to take that into Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, Smith Barney, wherever you've got your investments, and change the name on your account to the Behrman Family Living Trust instead of Bill and Cheryl Behrman. Behrman Family Living Trust. Your account number stays the same. Your passwords all stay the same. You're changing the name on the account. Same thing with your bank account, your checking account that you have at the bank. The benefit of that is if something happens now to you, your adult child can go into the bank with a copy of your trust and with their photo ID that shows that they are now the trustee of your trust, and they can take control of your funds right then. And you don't have to go through the court system to get it done. Okay? Now, you may add the trust as the second or contingent beneficiary. And again, for tax-deferred accounts, IRAs, 401ks, and those kinds of things, you'll want to check with your custodian. And also, it depends on your specific situation. And we can cover that when we meet one-on-one. But you can name the trust as the contingent beneficiary. If you have your spouse named as primary, you can use the trust as contingent, and then that gets that into the trust. Same thing is true with life insurance. You can do that. So you may want to add that. And I say that because that depends on everybody's their own personal situation. Here's a couple of books that I want to recommend to you. Living Trust for Everyone, Why a Will is Not the Way to Avoid Probate, Protect Heirs and Settle Estates. And the other one is by Ron Blue, and it's called Splitting Heirs, Giving Your Money and Things to Your Children Without Ruining Their Lives. That's pretty incredible. Both of them are easy reads. They both take about 2.5, 3 hours to read. You can get them on Amazon for about $4 each. And they're really interesting books that I think will guide you a lot in helping you understand what you're doing. So these are the documents that you're going to need. You're going to need a will or a living trust. And 99.99% of you will need a living trust. You'll also, each one of you will get an advanced health care directive. Now, you may remember and know about a living will. And what a living will is, it guides end-of-life decisions. Do you want a feeding tube? Do you want a respirator? Those things that happen at end of life. Well, now, in the state of Florida, we have what is called a Florida Advanced Healthcare Directive. And that's an umbrella document that not only covers the living will portion, but all medical issues, period. You get sick and you just don't want to make decisions anymore, your Advanced Healthcare Directive can pass those decisions on to whomever you want it to go. So you get those documents. If you do a living trust, you get what is called a pour-over will. And a pour-over will simply is a safety net. And the purpose of that is it's a regular will that names your trust as the beneficiary. Not all your heirs, but it names the trust as the beneficiary. Anything that you don't get funded into your trust, the will put it there for you. But the problem is because it's a will, it's going to go through probate. So that's why you want to get all these assets placed into the trust while you're still alive and able to do that. Now, I told you before that there isn't any pressure on what I do. If you want to work with me, that's fine. I'll help you, and we'll do your documents at no cost to you, and we'll update for as long as you live. We'll take care of your documents and all that for you. If you're interested in working through me and using us at CFR, where we use financial planning ministry, I've given a sign-up sheet on the table. If you're not interested, then you don't have to sign up, and you can take these documents and go to an attorney or wherever, and if you take these documents in and you complete them, your attorney will rise up and call you blessed because you did most of his work for him. He's still going to charge you, but he's going to be very happy that you've made all these decisions and made his job easier. Computer software online services. Generally, it'll cost you anywhere from $75 to $300. LegalZoom, U.S. legal forms, Total Legal, NOLO, all of those places have different prices they charge you for a will or a trust. Also with the advanced healthcare directives that you need, and they all are individually priced, and you can figure that out. Or you can go to a local legal professional. If you choose to go to an attorney, make sure that he or she is a licensed estate planning attorney. Don't go to someone that is a trial lawyer or an injury lawyer or one of those, because chances are they know about as much of this as what you do. And so you want to kind of avoid those issues. But if you go a legal professional, a will and healthcare documents will cost you anywhere from $500 to $1,000, and a trust and healthcare documents will cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, depends on how complicated your system is. Or you can work through us, and what we say is the money that you save by not going through probate and by us preparing your documents, then leave a portion of that that's not going to your family anyway, leave a portion of that here to the church and to ministries to bless God's kingdom as a result. So I've shown you the importance of having an estate plan to protect your family, the savings, security, and stewardship you can experience by avoiding probate, what the options are that you can use to get the task done. Just promise that you'll get it done. You'll choose one of these options and get it done. I just want to see you get it done. So if you want us to help you, there's a couple things I'm going to ask you to do. Is if you start the process, you'll finish it. And if you go through us and our ministry, we're going to ask you to be charitable with the money that you're going to save by not paying attorneys and probate fees and all that. We're going to ask you to be generous with that portion. This seminar and info is for the benefit of our church members and our churches. I don't do these seminars for civic groups or senior groups, that kind, because they don't understand the concept of stewardship. And these are stewardship issues. These are spiritual issues, not financial issues. If I take this into the general public, all they're interested in is getting free documents. And that's not what this is. This is about blessing God and glorifying Him and honoring Him with what He's entrusted to us. Now, here's my dream. This is Bill Behrman's dream. Is every family leaves a legacy tithe to Christian Church Ministries. And here's how you do that. If you save 5% on the probate fees, plus the lifetime of support for document prep and maintenance, that all ends up totaling about 10% anyway. It's money that's not going to go to your family. It was going to go to the court system and attorneys. I just ask you to bypass that, work through us, and take those funds and honor God with them. Because these funds wouldn't go to family anyway, so why not use the funds to change lives? To leave your legacy. There's people that have been a part of Merritt Island Church that have passed on, and you're a result here of the legacy they've left behind for you. So what will you do to leave your legacy for the next generation? Okay? What will you do for the next generation? So, commonly asked questions. Is a living trust a new idea? No, it's something that's been around for hundreds of years. Does the transfer process of my property into the trust affect my property taxes? Well, guess what? A trust will do a lot of things, but you still got to pay your property tax. I can't help you with that. You still got to pay property tax. May I include the distribution of personal items in my trust? Yes. Once you get your trust documents, I'll show you in the back of the trust, there's a special section there where you can list those personal items that you want to see go to a specific individual. Maybe it's your wedding rings that you want to go to your kids, or some jewelry, or maybe it's your 9mm, maybe it's your 380, maybe it's your AR-15 you want to make sure goes to somebody. You can do that, okay? May I make changes to my living trust efforts? Did I reveal some of my stuff with the AR-15 and the 9mm and the 40 Smith & Wesson?
That stuff's donated to the church.
There we go. Hey, really? I don't know if this church has, but more and more churches are engaging security and training people in the church to be security on a Sunday morning. I don't know if you have that or not, but all right, I'll shut up. Does a living trust make sense for a single person? Yes, it does, and even more so, so that you can get this transferred. Is a living trust practical for smaller estates? Certainly it is, because it can make the job just that much quicker and make it much easier than even going through summary probate. So again, whether you have $5 or you have $5 million, it makes sense to be able to do that. Does a living trust avoid probate on out-of-state property? Yes, it does. So if you have property out of state, you're able to avoid probate in that state and also avoid probate in this state for the property that you own. Now, what if I don't want to support my church or any other ministry? Well, then I've been up here talking for an hour, and I don't think I've gotten my point across yet, so I have to step on your toes again. But I'm not going to do that. You all understand the concepts. You understand what we're doing here, and it's about funding ministry. If you choose that you don't want to support the church, if you don't want to support any of those 80 some odd organizations that's listed, or financial planning ministry or CFR, then I'll kindly refer you to a local attorney to have them help you with your documents, because that's not what this is about. This is about kingdom resources and using your estate to honor God. Do I need current state documents? Yes, we've already talked about that. You'll want to update and make sure you have Florida documents. And if I want to establish my estate plan, then what's the next step? Okay, if you're interested, you can sign up, and I will send you an email. You'll also get an email from Financial Planning Ministry. I'm going to come back on Wednesday and Thursday, March 21 and March 22, and I'll be here all day and into the evening to meet with people one-on-one in 45-minute appointments. And to get an appointment, this is how you do it. If you are not computer savvy, you can pick up my business card there and call me, and I can schedule an appointment for you. But if you go online, go to fpm.org. Go to fpm.org and click on appointments. See where it's in red? You can click on appointments. You know, you don't have to take a picture of it. You've got it in your packet of information. Okay? So then that'll help you to do that. But you'll click on appointments. And once you click on appointments, you'll get the next screen, which is a geographical test for you, because we're in Florida. So you'll click on Florida. So when you click on Florida, you'll get the next screen, and this is going to ask you for an event code. Here's the event code. It's been on the last 3 screens. It's MIC 318. Merritt Island Church, March 18. Pretty creative, huh? So, you'll put that code in there, MIC 318, and when you do, then you'll see my schedule pop up for those 2 days. And if one of those lines says not available at that time frame, well, guess what? You missed out, because somebody else grabbed that already. But there'll be plenty of slots, and if I need to expand those 2 days time-wise, I'll do that and add more time. So if I start seeing it filling up, I'll expand the times and take care of it. If you see that you cannot make either one of those days, then call me And I can either run over here at another point in time, or we can do it over the phone, or we'll figure out something. I just want to help you get it done. Okay, so don't let that hold you back if neither one of those days work for you. Okay? Those who died yesterday had plans for this morning. Those who died this morning had plans for tonight. Don't take life for granted. In the blink of an eye, everything can change. So forgive often and love with all your heart. You may never know when you may not have that chance again. You may never know when you might not have that chance again. So take it to heart. I'm going to quickly run through this planning guide. Because I find when I go through the planning guide real quick, I've already given you the instructions for it, the written instructions, but I want to quickly run through it to address a couple of issues in that planning guide. If while you're going through this, you have questions, give me a call or send me an email with your questions. Because it's easier to deal with your questions in an environment like that than trying to get you to make decisions in a 45-minute appointment. Because I run on time with my appointments. I don't run a doctor's office. I'm able to run on time, and in all my hundreds and thousands of appointments, I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've overrun my time. It generally takes about 20-25 minutes to go through it. But I like to run through this, so we'll run through it real quick. So the first page, that's just your contact information. You fill out the contact information of your name, address, and all that. Then the second page is you list your children. From a previous marriage, also from the current marriage, you'll list those. If you need extra lines, you'll go into the back on page 15, and you'll do that and complete that. Go ahead. Oh, here we are. This is the book I'm talking about. This is the book I'm talking about, okay? Then the next page is where the decisions start coming in. This is where you have to decide who's going to be our manager. If something happens to us, who's going to be our manager? Generally, you want to pick someone that is fairly organized, that can make decisions, can handle things financially. And that's who you want as a successor trustee. It's best to name one or two.
Should you have more than one?
Yes, yes, you'll want to identify up to 3, or even more than that if you want. But that way then, if the first person can't, you got somebody else already in line ready to go. Same thing is true with step 5 on the healthcare agent. It says if you're married, do you want your spouse named as first agent? Well, most people do. I hope. And then underneath that is where you have your alternate agents, and you'll see there that it's kind of designed if you have a second marriage, because sometimes folks with second marriages, he may have his child and she may have her child that she wants making health care. If you have the same person, you know, this is your first marriage and you have the same person, then just scratch out his and her and put number 1 and number 2. Then you can name alternates there, okay? So that's how you do that. Then the next page is where you're going to name who's going to be the guardian. And select an alternate guardian as well. Then step 7 is where you start listing your estate. And this is to help you understand about what you're approximately worth. So the first item is your tangible personal property. It's the stuff that you own, your cars, your furniture, your things at home, things that would get sold in an estate auction. We've all seen those on Saturday mornings in the neighborhood. That's what's going on. Is somebody has passed away, and now the heirs are trying to sell and get everything converted to cash. So when you write in a number, think of the stuff that you have and what it would probably bring at auction. Not what you think it's worth, but what more than likely it would bring at auction. Most people are anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 of things that they have. So kind of gives you an idea. Then the next item is where you list your bank accounts. So you got an account with Wells Fargo, you have a checking account with $832, just round it up to $1,000. Maybe you've got a savings account with Christian Financial Resources of $9,342, just round it up and put in $10,000. And just round things, because it's there to guide you to help later on. Next page talks about retirement benefits, 401k, IRAs. Here's the thing I want you to check on is, do you have a primary beneficiary listed, and do you have a contingent beneficiary listed on those documents? Check on that and see. Most people know they've got the primary because it's their spouse, but they don't know if they have a contingent or not. Just check for right now to see that you do, and if you do, who it is, and then we'll talk about it when we get together. The middle section is your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, Edward Jones, Smith Barney, Merrill Lynch. That's where you would put that in. And again, just round up the amount and make it even. Then life insurance policies, the same thing there goes, who do you have as primary and who do you have as contingent? Even if it's minor children, that's fine. Write it down so that we can talk about it and I can guide you in that process. Next page, business ownership. Do you own a business? What we're going to do is we will create an assignment that when you pass, your business assets will flow into the trust and be assigned to the trust that you're passing. It'll be a single page document. The next one is real property. You put in your address of your house and what you think your house is worth. If you don't have any idea, you can go on to Zillow.com. You can check there, or you could take your tax assessor's assessed value and add $10,000, $20,000 on top of that, and that would generally give you a close approximation of what your house is worth. Next page is where you identify your debts. If anything that's over $5,000, you'll list them. And then the bottom section is your evaluation summary. You'll summarize everything to come down to that bottom line total that says net value of your estate. Now, it's important for you to know that because now, and this is only for your benefit, nobody else will know, it's nobody else's business. It helps guide you to know what you're worth. So now we ask you, once you know what you're worth, how do you want to distribute it? So the first question we ask you is, what do you want to do for ministry? How much do you want to pass along to ministry? So here's all these 80+ organizations that all support the work of financial planning ministry. We're one of those. Lake Aurora Camp is one of those. Johnson University, Florida is one of those. Those are the 3 organizations in the state of Florida. There's major mega churches that are listed here. Other different organizations. Then you get over onto page 11, and in that middle section, that's where you put Merritt Island Church. That's where you'll put the church, is in there, okay? Then down below, if you want to do like the 10%, and you're going to honor God with 10%. Maybe you want to do like 8% to the church, 1% to Christian Financial Resources, and 1% to Lake Aurora Camp. You can do that. Just divide it up however you want. If there is an organization that you don't see listed there that you want to support in addition to these, then you just write them in here at the top or down below, and you put them in as well. You can list as many different organizations as you want. One time I had a lady that she did 1% to every different organization, and she had 10 different organizations that she wanted to support. So we did that, and we got that done for her. Okay? Then the next is after your expenses and your ministry gifts are paid, then how do you want it split? Generally what we do is, at this point, we will put our next generation in there. Whether they're minors or they're adult children. We'll put our children there. So like for me, for Cheryl and I, we put Kelly and Creston in there, and each getting 50%. Because what's left over is going to be divided 50% between each child. Then we come in and we ask you, all right, if this beneficiary dies before you, this share will go to. So if something happens to that beneficiary and you're not able to update your documents, then something happens to you, where will his or her portion go? So if they have children, you can list beneficiaries surviving children. So it'll stay in that family and go down that bloodline. You with me? Or if they don't have children, you can take the next option, your surviving children. So like in our situation, Kelly doesn't have any children yet, so her, we marked, would go to Creston. Now, Creston just had a baby in July. So now we've updated our documents now. Instead of going back up to Kelly, it now goes to his son, beneficiary surviving children. So you with me? You see how that works? How you'll do that? And you go one generation and then you split off of that for grandkids. Because again, you're going to be able to update your documents as life changes for you. All right? Then the next page is a final beneficiary. If something happens to everybody, you and your spouse and everybody that's on page 12, you're all on a cruise ship and the boat sinks. Anybody going on a cruise tomorrow? Okay, all right, you're all right then. You just got off. Anyway, who's going to be the final beneficiary if there's nobody to survive? People will put siblings in there, they'll put distant relatives, they'll put friends, they'll put the church in there. A lot of people just put the church in because if they're gone, they're going to be with Jesus anyway, and they're just going to leave everything to the church. Or they do a combination, maybe 50% to the church and 50% to a brother. You can decide that, but that's what that is. So you need to decide who's going to be the final beneficiary. It's more important a decision if you're a young family with young children at home, because the chance of something happening to you and your kids together is much more a risk than it is when you have kids all across the country. So that becomes more of an important decision for those of you that are younger in deciding what you're going to do. So a lot of young families, they'll leave it to both sets of their parents. That's just an idea that you can consider. Then the middle section is the children's trust. Maybe you've got an adult child that's a spendthrift. This is where you'll write in how you want that spendthrift child to receive their portion of the inheritance. If you have a special needs child, we can create a special needs trust for you as well to provide for the ongoing support of that special needs child. So we can do that as well. In addition to how it's written here for minor children. Because it's also written here for minor children that if something happens to the two of you, that the trustee is to take care of the children until they reach legal age, and then once they reach legal age, they're to continue meeting their expenses until they reach a certain age. Here it's at 25 they get 50%, and at 30 they get the remaining 50%. And what we did with our kids was when they were little and they were minors, we had it at 18, 21, and 25. At 18 they got 25%. At 21, they got 25%, and at 25, they got the remaining 50%, thinking that at 18, that would pay their undergrad, at 21, that would pay their grad program, and at 25, it'd buy them a house. So if anything happened to us, they would have been set. Now, they far past that now, so all that changed, and we were able to drop all that language now. But that's how you do it, okay? You decide how you want that divided. Then the back page is where you sign and date. And you bring the plan guide with a copy of your warranty deed, I don't want your original, and also your property tax statement. And you make the appointment and come in and sign up, and I'll help you get these documents done. Then in about a month's time, you'll have your documents done, and all this will be behind you. And at any time you need to update, I'll show you how you do that for down the road. If you have questions, I'll hang around and answer questions, but I'll have closing prayer. And then I certainly appreciate your all's attentiveness. I wasn't aware of anybody going to sleep on me tonight, and I trust that you learned a lot. And I realize that a lot of this can be confusing, but please give me a call if you have questions. If you have any concerns, I want to help you get this done, okay? I really want to see you get this done. So I'll close in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and wow, we've been through so much material, and it's almost overwhelming. And I just pray, Lord, that your peace will envelop the folks here tonight. allow a calmness of mind, a clarity of mind to take place. Father, grant us a discernment, grant us a wisdom as we start contemplating decisions that we need to make as to how we can best manage what you've entrusted to us, how we can best honor you, how we can best give you the glory, and how we can best use our legacy to win others to Jesus Christ. Father, grant us the wisdom that we need and the ability to just get this done. Help us, Father, to no longer procrastinate, but to make a commitment, to make a spiritual commitment to you that we're going to get this done in the next couple of months so that we can honor you with all that you've done for us. Thank you for this church, Lord. Thank you for the witness here. Thank you for the legacy that's here, the legacy that has transcended through generations. Help us, Father, to be aware of your great love. Help us, Father, to be kind to one another. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.